In today's video, we're discussing some more updated NHL trade rumors coming from the latest edition of TSN Insider Trading, where they discuss teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Vancouver Canucks, the Calgary Flames, the Buffalo Sabres, and the Los Angeles Kings. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, I have a variety of trade rumors I want to discuss today from NHL Insider Trading. Let's kick things off here with the Calgary Flames. Now, they had a bit of a scare a few days ago with Captain Mark Giordano leaving the ice. Appeared to be a pretty serious injury. There were some people around him who could hear him saying he thought he tore his hamstring, which would have been a devastating injury for himself and the team. He likely would have been done most definitely for the season and would have had quite an extensive recovery ahead of him. Although it looks as though they have dodged a bullet, as GM Brad Treliving updated the media yesterday, indicating that it wasn't as bad as originally believed, and he's going to be out for approximately a week, and they feel that he can rehab it and get back in the action sooner than later, which is good news. But Giordano's injury certainly will play a role into how the Calgary Flames approach the NHL Trade Deadline, which is only about 3 weeks away now, so obviously injuries can have major impacts on teams in a positive or negative way, and can certainly alter their plans and what they think the team needs. So clearly the Flames have been a team we've talked about all year that trading a D for another forward, somebody who can ideally play top 6, but preferably at least top 9, another scorer up there in the mix, either a center or a winger, either way would be sufficient because they can move guys around to kind of spread the scoring out. But with Giordano being out, it's unlikely they're going to be able to move a D unless he can be back and be healthy early enough ahead of the deadline that they can feel confident doing that. But many still believe that a player like TJ Brodie would be a player moved to try to attempt to bring in another forward. And then Sam Bennett's name has been coming up a lot in the rumor mill as well. According to Darren Dreger and Pierre LeBrun, he mentioned that it's out there quite a bit, but the Flames are not necessarily looking to trade him. And even I heard Brian Burke on Sportsnet made some valid points about Bennett. Because of the gritty style that he plays, he'd have a hard time seeing the Flames going into a playoff series without him in the lineup just based on what he brings. But many believe that Bennett might be looking for a bit of a fresh start, and he might want more of an opportunity to play more of an offensive role. He's mostly a fourth liner in Calgary, but he was obviously drafted as a very highly offensively gifted forward. He just hasn't been able to translate that game to the NHL level since he's been there. So if he's not traded ahead of the deadline, which I think would be surprising to an extent, I could see maybe a move taking place in the offseason and see if he can get more of an offensive role, perhaps on another club. But Giordano's injury will certainly impact the Flames. If he can be back in a week or so, as the GM has indicated, then they very well still likely will be targeting a forward, and Tyler Toffoli has been the main name so far that's been linked here to the Flames. Now let's jump over and look at one of their Pacific rivals in the Vancouver Canucks. They're having an exceptionally strong year, certainly surprising to many that they've done quite so well. I know I expected the Canucks to be a much improved team over last year, but they've improved even more than I expected them to. I know many others, I know Canucks fans are quite pleased. And it does appear the rebuild is over, and now they're building towards being a playoff team and a potential longer-term Stanley Cup contender. A lot of their young guys have taken some major steps forward, which is a big part of their success here. But obviously, they have a few question marks going into the deadline. And obviously, one of them is forward Michael Furlan, who's been out injured, and whether or not he can return and be the effective piece that they thought they were getting when they signed him as an unrestricted free agent. Now, the Canucks apparently are linked to another player who can play a similar type of role, and that's Wayne Simmons of the New Jersey Devils, according to NHL insider Pierre LeBrun. He's mentioned that the Canucks actually had a lot of interest in Simmons when he was a UFA. Obviously, they ended up signing Furlan. Simmons went to New Jersey, but the interest remains, and if Furlan can't be relied upon going into the playoffs, that they might very well look to add a guy like Simmons from New Jersey. It probably wouldn't be a huge asking price. At the same time, though, the Canucks don't really want to part with a whole lot of future assets. They've got a lot in place here, and they've made a lot of moves in the offseason. And obviously, Jim Benning's not going to want to spend a whole lot to try to accelerate things, but I do think there is some pressure from ownership to not only get into playoffs, but to make some noise as well. So adding another veteran could certainly be on the radar for Vancouver. But it's not a given at all, and depending on the health of Michael Furlan, they may not go down that route. But they are linked to Simmons should they decide to want to add a veteran forward. Now let's jump over and take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course, we saw the big trade between the Kings and the Leafs, where the Leafs got themselves a veteran forward and a backup goalie. And the Leafs are not done, and their trading partner, the Kings, who we'll discuss momentarily, are not done either. Of course, the Maple Leafs now turn their attention to adding a top four defenseman, and it's going to complicate things even further now that they know that Cody Ceci is going to be out for about 4 weeks, possibly a little bit longer, with a high ankle sprain. He was placed on long-term injury reserve. Of course, they're already without Morgan Riley, so that certainly complicates things on the blue line and might expedite a little bit of a move here, like we see them did with the goaltending situation. They couldn't wait anymore. They had to make a move. Obviously, Hutchinson wasn't getting the job done. Anderson was injured, and they kind of felt like they had to do something, so they made a pretty solid move. At least so far it looks that way. We'll see if they can make another one on the blue line. But the good part about that other trade is they did not part with any of their other younger forwards who've been mentioned in the rumor mill, like Kapanen or possibly even Alex Kerfoot or Andreas Janssen. Obviously, Trevor Moore was a pretty decent small forward. He's pretty quick. Certainly has some upside and a decent future, I do believe, but it wasn't as an integral part of the team and wasn't as well established as those other guys. So I do think that the Leafs made up pretty well with what they gave up in that trade, and they still have lots of other trade chips to acquire the defenseman. Now, one name that certainly was confirmed that they did inquire on, not sure how far talks went or if they could pick up again, but that was Matt Dumba of the Minnesota Wild, and I do think that Kapanen would be a player that they would certainly have a lot of interest in. It's been no secret that GM Bill Guerin's been looking to add a top six forward, and I think a guy like Kapanen could be more of a solid top six who can be even more productive than he is in Toronto should he be able to give him more opportunity. We saw last year when Nylander was out without his contract, when he played with Matthews, how much more of an offensive threat he can certainly be when given the opportunity. But as long as he's going to be a Maple Leaf, he's going to have to play further down in the lineup. It's going to limit his role a little bit, and it might be best for both of them if he's used, in my opinion at least, as the trade chip to bring in another top defenseman. So I guess we'll see what happens. There's plenty of other D around the league they could look to, but one of the reasons that was indicated that Alec Martinez was not discussed was the Leafs were not interested in his services. That's why the trade with the Kings was not bigger and more elaborate with more pieces going in each direction. Now, sticking here with the Los Angeles Kings, clearly they're in selling mode. They sold a few pieces off to the Leafs, and they have a few other guys like Alec Martinez who are certainly expected to be on the move. You can throw in other veteran forward Trevor Lewis into that mix as well. I think Lewis would make an excellent bottom six addition to many teams. There was links to some teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins, for example, who could have interest to bring in a guy like him. Price tag's not going to be huge, but you can certainly go a long way to adding what the value would be with a veteran guy who's good in the room. He plays hard, has a lot of leadership, a lot of experience, has a Stanley Cup ring to his name, and would be a nice addition to most playoff teams down the stretch here. Although Alec Martinez gets a little bit more of the attention in the rumor mill and talk amongst NHL insiders, there's plenty of teams out there expected to be interested and have been showing interest already, including the Florida Panthers, as well as the Winnipeg Jets, who are certainly hoping to clear up the Dustin Byfuglien situation and get some necessary cap space back to make a move. So those two teams, I think, would be the prime targets to acquire Martinez. The Panthers and GM Dale Talon have made it known on the record here that he wants to improve the defense and certainly shake things up a little bit on that blue line before the playoffs. And obviously, like I said, it's been rumored before that Mike Hoffman might be a piece that they're looking to trade to make that happen. I don't know if they'd have to trade Hoffman to get Martinez, but either way, is certainly a player who could possibly find himself out of Florida to accomplish what they need on the back end. But Martinez makes a lot of sense for the Panthers as well as the Jets. I mean, he has another year on his contract, so it's certainly attractive piece, veteran leadership, the Stanley Cup ring on his finger. So by no means are the Kings done, and those are the top two teams in contention for Martinez's services as of right now. Now, lastly here, I want to touch on the Buffalo Sabres. Things have really spiraled downhill for the Sabres. It's really turned into a bit of a tire fire. They've really even lost against Detroit. Things have been going terrible this year. They had another hot start. It was kind of like they did last year, and then things really went downhill. Even though they're seeing a really solid year out of Jack Eichel, most of the team is not doing well at all, and several changes need to be made, in my opinion, to really get this thing back on the rails here. Now, the Sabres, it feels like they've been rebuilding forever. They've gone through such an extensive time with all kinds of high picks, and things are just not working out. And I have to think that GM Jason Botterill must be feeling some pressure, must be on the hot seat here. Ownership's going to have to get involved if something has to be done, but there is still lots of rumors that Botterill wants to add a top six forward. It's pretty much been that way for 3/4, if not all, of this current NHL season. There's been lots of talk that he wants to add a forward, but has not been able to do that. He added Michael Frolik, but that's not the answer he was looking for. That's more of a bottom six or middle six type of role. It's now being talked about that he might have to trade one of his more veteran defensemen who are actually, better pieces on the team here, like a Brendan Montour or a Rasmus Ristolainen. I mean, I know before Ristolainen had requested a trade, but didn't seem to kind of take things back. But a lot of what Ristolainen wanted out of Buffalo for was what's happening now. He wanted more of an opportunity. Clearly, this losing culture needs to change, and a lot of these players got to be feeling frustrated. I've even heard some people question how long and how much of this is Jack Eichel going to be willing to take before he asks for a trade out of Buffalo. Right now, NHL insiders don't believe that he's anywhere near that, that he still wants to be part of the solution and fix the Sabres and help bring them back into being a much more contending team. For many players who have that desire to win when they're not getting anywhere with the team around them, certainly can be frustrating and a little bit hard on the head longer term. So I guess we will see if the Sabres can make any moves or not. Really, at this point, the Sabres are not going to be a playoff team. So as much as Botterill might be feeling some pressure, a lot of these issues could be addressed in the offseason, whether it's him or another GM at the helm of this team. Something needs to be done. Even the other guys like Jeff Skinner, who got a mega contract this past offseason, are not performing to the way that they're capable of. So something's got to give in Buffalo. I feel bad for the fans there. They've been waiting and waiting for all these years for this rebuild to kind of be coming closer to an end and move forward, and the team's just not getting there. So let me know what you think. What do the Sabres need to do, and how long is it going to take to make them relevant again? So, of course, as always, want to know your thoughts and opinions and everything discussed here today. So make sure you leave some comments and we can continue the conversation down in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, turning on your notifications, and checking out our membership options as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody, and I will catch you next time.